I'm pleased today to have Iris Brosch as an invitee. Iris is really a multi-talented, can I say multimedia artist more than only photographer? Because you have so many facets to your work. And one of them I discovered in Photoschweiz, that was in 2023. And maybe we'll talk about it, probably we'll talk about it a little later. That was the Black Madonna. But first of all, I want to ask you the main question for this podcast is, why photography? What's photography in your life and in your work? Can you maybe introduce that?
Mm-hmm. Hello, Tristan. I'm really excited to be here with you for your podcast. Why photography? I always wanted to go into visuals, into something which is a powerful tool and can educate people and give new ideas and new hope. So photography was the most easiest tool, in fact, to use. That's how I started. In fact, I just found a camera in Paris. Somebody gave it to me and I started to take pictures.
Yeah, because it's interesting. Your work has so many, as I said before, so many facets. It goes from performances, from actually also broadcasting some of your subjects you actually broadcast. I'll put all the links below the podcast on your websites and projects.
I created my own TV station, The World of Iris Brosch, which is about fashion, art, and feminism. And I started with photography. I started in the 90s, analog with broad cameras and Nikon, Canon, Hasselblad, Fast One. But I always liked the idea of creating new images.
But in that sense, photography and images, you said before that you felt it was simpler. But when we look at your work, it's so rich and so elaborated. Do you think it's actually that simple?
It's not so simple, but it's to take a picture, especially now with the iPhone, it's a little bit more. I could have been a painter 100 years ago, 200 years ago, I would have chosen possible painting, oil, or any kind of sculptures, but now it's quite simple in the way you of course you create also images like a painter, but it's still a little quicker than doing a painting, I think, so that's how I started with photography.
And the importance today, because I'm thinking basically at the work of the Black Madonna that I've seen in Zurich. It's really a very physical, quite monumental in some ways work. Photography is probably the lead for this work, but it's so physical. It's so deep also in terms of values, beliefs. Is that part of the importance photography has for you? Or?
I see. My background is fashion and advertising. I worked for Vogue, Vanity Fair, Harper's Bazaar, for all these magazines. So I'm coming from this big production, and with the digital revolution, I saw that we needed something else, not just something secret where you create a cover and nobody sees. So I started a new kind of art form called photo performance, where I use what you do in commercial photography and fashion photography, and I put it out in public. So I create these big tableaus, sometimes with non-models, with people just passing by, like we did for the Black Madonna for Photoschweiz. I started last year. And we used the image of the Black Madonna in Einsiedeln and revitalized it with a live casting, and this became then a photo performance. It's a live tableau. In fact, the spectator can see how you create the image, and the spectator is also involved in the image. So it's a new form of a photo performance. It's just not before there was just a photo, you looked at it. I created this art form. You become part of the process of the final image. So that's my work now, but of course I also go back to the normal kind of photography where you sell just a photo, because that's what makes the money, you know.
But actually, when you talk about that, that's where I think it's also very important, is when we look at the thematics you access through your artwork. So there's tell me if I'm wrong, but you're very centric on the question of gender, of the position of women, of the value of women, of the feeling of self-valuation, also of one owns individuality as a woman. So is there really this strong link between your photography and who you are as an individual in our world?
Of course, me being a female photographer, I saw a lot of things turning around male ideas. And I believe, especially in times of sickness, war, that it's really important that we create more female ideas and more female vision. So that's how I am imposing my idea by creating these images, because I believe when you create an image, it becomes a reality. And in the world in we are living, it's what we human have created. So it's quite complex. It's just not an image. It's just not a photography. It becomes a reality. And the church always used it, you know, how to construct a human mind. We are constructed. So I like to construct a new image through photography, and for our times and for our society, which brings more female energy and light. So that's all my work about, how to, in fact, deconstruct the male ideas of the world to reconstruct a female vision of this world and life. And that's my work about.
Like a renaissance. I know you refer often.
Yes, like a renaissance. I love to be always. It's art was always important before the Italian artists. They had paintings, but they created a whole new movement, which we can do through photography too. We can create new ideas, new perspectives for this society, and we should never underestimate the power of images. As artists, we have a certain duty to do it and be conscient how the question is how to do, because there's so many images now which constantly bombarding us. So
that's where I really was fascinated by the work, and is how proactive you seem to be in trying to enhance the happiness in some ways of the people who discover your work and maybe rediscover their own self. Do you think that your message is actually more widespread because of this accessibility of images today?
Possible. I'm in this way non-academic, just simple and easy to communicate, you know, so I don't try to make it too complicated, because then the message gets lost. Quite simple. And I like to touch everybody, if it's academic, if it's what social background. I think it's important to touch the human being more than just a little piece of people coming out of certain schools. I think it should be always global, you know, the message should be global and understood by everybody. And I can see sometimes my message is sometimes more understood by simple people than when it gets too academic, too complex, you know, so they're getting lost a lot, you know.
But actually, it goes again back to what you were saying about trying to free maybe or view or vision of women sexuality and erotism. Did you build your message because of photography, or photography was just kind of a shallow vessel that you used to do it?
No, it's not a shallow vessel. No, it's not. It's a tool. It's a tool. It's like it's a tool. It's like you using before a pinceau, or you go into the marble. It's a tool, but it's not shallow. Whatever tool you use, if you know how to use, it can be an art piece, you know. It depends on how you're using it, you know. I have a lot of experience, of course, how to use it. So I can I can nearly dance with the camera because I worked so much, you know. But it's never a shallow tool. No. It's I used it like some other people would use other tools. So the computer can be also a tool, but it depends on how much energy and how you're using it. At the end, it's still me, you know. I just you used it like a tool, but it's not shallow.
Yeah, it empowered you to transmit your message and to share. Yeah.
Yes, exact. And it continues, in fact, and it will always continue. I needed to change also because I'm coming from analog photography. Then there was a digital revolution. Now it's also iPhone, the social media. So the techniques you need to adapt when you want to bring a message always. So the techniques are important and you need to know what's going on. So, but this is just something to transport your message. But better you know how to paint, like Leonardo da Vinci, he knew how to paint. So, you know, you need to know what you're doing with the techniques, you know.
And where do you think it is leading you now? Now that you, again, I'm going to go back to the Black Madonna.
Yes.
How do you see this project evolving right now, and how much impact do you think it's having?
Mm-hmm. I'm surprised myself. Recently, I saw a lot of my work in context of religious art. You know, I never thought about it myself, but I'm myself Christian. I'm a Protestant. I know where I come from, and I love, by example, I worked a lot on nudity, or on videos of women and men, and it's always really difficult normally to show because there's so much awful things going on when you show the nude body, that when I saw, by example, my work shown in the great Chapelle de la Charité in Arles during the photo festival, I saw myself how beautiful it looks when you see the nude bodies in a 17th century chapel, because there's no misunderstanding anymore. You know, sometimes people always trying to intellectualize it, but it's nude. Why is it nude? Blah blah blah. But when you see it in a church, in a sacred place, you see exactly the message what I want to give. That us human, we are sacred. And these places helping myself to make a difference. Then when I'm trying not to post too many nude things on Instagram because it gets vulgarized. So you need to stand or put yourself in the context you like, you know. But I'm learning myself. I didn't choose. It comes by itself, or possibly I don't know that I choose, but I love to see my work projected in a chapel. And with Photo Schweiz, we decided together what to do, and there was a Black Madonna in Einsiedeln, which was our inspiration, because I think in religious art it's there's a fundament of our culture, you know. So that's possibly why I go more into these deep roots of our society, and being not afraid, because most of the artists, they would never touch religion, because most of the artists, when you ask them which religion they are, they say nothing. You know, they reject religion. I don't reject religion. I think I'm born. I'm not a religious person, but I know where I come from, and I'm not scared of my religion. So I use it. I use it too. You know, because I think religion gives faith.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Is religion, faith, beliefs in general, the notion of the sacred. And you were talking about modern ways of communicating, of sharing our values by means of internet or social media. Don't you find it a kind of strange in some ways that nudity, sensuality, sexuality is more of a forbidden fruit and violence than some of those male values that you were talking about before? Don't you think do you think there's something linked to the spirituality, to the lack of faith or something like that today?
That's really, I think it's all control, you know. We are bombarded by pornography, by war, by sickness, by everything which makes you feel fearful. But any kind of erotic is censored, any kind of passion and desire is censored. The young generation is growing up only thinking making love, it's kind of a pornographic act. So I'm always worried about how the next generation will be, because the act of love and the act of two human beings touching each other is also giving life. And I think we should work more on this, because this will create a whole new generation of people. But of course, if you, it makes people also powerful when they're in touch with their own body, with their own sexuality, with their own desire. It gives power to us humans. So I think there's a purpose control on us to make us look like a little machines, Barbie and Ken, you know, because
to scare us into the system.
Yes, exact. So it's easy to control if we have no if we have no desire, no body, no sexuality, then we become like little machines. And I think that's that's kind of easy then to control and make us believe we have to buy this and this and this and this, and but it's dangerous to humanity.
And would you say that's actually the prolongation of that kind of feminism you're trying to bring about? That women, that feminine side is actually this kind of rediscovering of our own sensuality and the power of
Yes, because I think, of course, we need to redefine completely the idea of sex, which is defined by men most of the time, to the pleasure of men. And now I think the Western white world gets into an impasse. And when there's an impasse, then the solution is war, you know. But we need to redefine us like human being, like interacting sexual human being. What is sex? What is desire? So there need to be a whole new work done. And of course, I hope women coming up and telling the first time how they feel about making love, how they feel, what is sex, instead of repeating old ideas of male definition.
Yeah. And do you think your work actually, I personally, I saw it as a great way to emphasize desire and desiring more than simply imposing values. And do you think that your work is actually, do you think that was the goal of that part of your work?
You know, I'm a woman. I don't have a goal. I don't work like this, but I like to inspire. I think art should be inspiring. It is a compliment to hear that it inspires. It's supposed to be. It should make us feel good about ourselves. You know, if you look at the Greek art and the Roman art, they stand their full bodies, proud of their human being. If you look at our art world, it's like a trash bag now, and that's what will stay. So I really think art, possible there was a necessity to be a trash bag, but now I think there's a necessity to build us again and believe in us human and make us strong again. So if I'm inspiring people by my art, is always a compliment, and enjoying what we have until it will be you don't know what's really going on. So Tristan, I like the idea of being inspiring in my work.
I'm going to put all the links underneath the podcast. Do you have something you would like to tell us about? Is there a continuation? Can we still see the project going on, or?
Yes, there will be a lot of different things. There's a film coming out. I'm working on different things here. There will be an exhibition also here in New York about my friend and feminist Cher Hyde, who passed away. So there will be a lot of things coming, and sometimes also it's always a question, what's next? Sometimes it's good to just rest too. But I'm in New York, so I'm building a lot of things from here. What I could tell to every photographer or young photographer, always try to create something which brings light to yourself and to the other which are looking at it.
Well, thanks so much for this dialogue.
Thank you, Tristan. It was a nice surprise for me this morning here in New York to speak to you. Thank you.